Why is my audio caps? There. No. Okay. Voice check 1 2 3 4 5. Ken, give me a voice check.
You got it. Voice check. Checking the voice. Checking the voice.
And Steve.
Voice check. Voice check. Voice check. Here we are. Boring.
And
It's Saturday.
why
What do
is
you
my
expect?
audio caps? There. Okay. Voice check 1 2 3 4. I'm just seeing if I can hear you guys. Takes about 20 seconds to come back around. Okay, we're all 5 by 5.
5 by 5.
All righty. Let me mute my volume here. And let's kick this pig a couple minutes early and we'll get rolling. First, the obviously the big topic of discussion tonight is that Roy Cross passed away a day after his 100th birthday. And I mean, he made the magic number, but it's still, nobody likes losing a. Well, he's kind of some of the last remaining royalty in the old world of kit models. But anyway, he's so associated. I'm sure he did other stuff, but he is so associated with Airfix, and he's kind of like, it's just. It's almost like he was holding on to make 100 just to hit the mark, But we a lot of people owe him like Jack Linwood and so many others. He helped to make our childhood. So, and I'm sure I know he retired some time back, but still, it's just the idea. He will be missed, I'm sure. Excuse me, guys. Just put water here. The as far as I'm concerned, they should be running the flags at half-mast in the UK. But so we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. But the beauty of having had a few days off and getting all my chores done was I had some time to actually work on some stuff. And we got a whole bunch of things to talk about. But before I get started, I want to give a big shout out to Martin. I just got a text from Fran. They were down at Model Fest, and we'll be talking about that down in Melbourne. And he said they had a good turnout. And Martin picked me up a Mobius Johnny Quest Dragonfly. So I'll probably pick that up from Fran soon. So Martin, thank you. I appreciate that. I love Mobius kits. I built their B9 robot, and it went together really well. So they're really detailed. They're really nice. So, the first thing was, I'm not exactly sure what got me onto this, but I was looking at aircraft from 1929 to 1989, and I started comparing them to cars. And I'm thinking, okay, here are your cars from 1929, and then 1939, and then 1949, and I'm thinking, even when you get into the 50s, you're not really seeing a lot of, I don't know if the word's advancement, but whoops, okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's do it this way.
Advancement in what way? Fitting and
everything, styling, performance. I mean, the cars of the night. I mean, some of the race cars of the 1920s and 30s. I mean, they'd hold up today. I mean, they were driving at some serious speeds.
I don't agree with that at all.
I mean, admittedly, they weren't as mechanically reliable, but some of those race cars were going what, $1.50?
Yeah, but in the 50s was the era of the car really coming into its own. It was much more stylized. They had many more features. People were able to afford them. More people could afford them after the war.
Mm-hmm.
And, the interstate highway system came into play then. And that really, made it a car-centric country.
Well, my humble opinion, one of the reasons we're car-centric in the United States is because this country is so bloody big. A car is, it's funny in a way when you think about it. A car, you just sparked a thought, which is always a dangerous thing to do when I'm on the air. But the United States, and Ken, you're going to love this because you and I've talked about this before. The United States is too big with wide open spaces for passenger rail in the modern day. Right? We're an airplane country for transcontinental flying. A couple other countries, Russia, China, a few others that are really huge. You just laying the track, maintaining it, the cost, the time. Trains just don't really. Passenger rail doesn't really work, especially not high speed because. But because
passenger rail never makes money.
Right, but because we are so big and people need to get around, especially since the interstates were made, now the family car is the magic carpet to go anywhere. And but you look at cars of the 40s, 50s. I mean, I would, and feel free to correct me, but I would say between 1915, 1920, and the 1930s, styles didn't change very much. You still had the exterior hoods, the bug-eye headlamps, the small grills, and then in the late 30s, they start streamlining, and in the 40s and 50s, you start getting the boxier look, which kind of defined the sedan as we know it today. But the 60s is when cars started looking what I would call modern.
No, I disagree.
Okay, make your case.
If you look at the cars, that there was a big jump in styling from the 20s to the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then there was another jump in the late 30s. Then the war broke out.
Right.
After the war was when it really took off, because look right here, what you got the slide that's up with the 49 Ford.
Okay, let me put that on top and enlarge that. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, look, you got the 39 Ford above it, you got the 49 Ford below it. Now, look at the difference. It was lower, it was wider, okay? It had a better engine, it had a better suspension, tires were better. And then in the 50s, it really took off. Now, the 60s was more of the muscle car era.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 50s was when you had General Motors was at the top of their game, Chrysler did great things, Ford did great things. The 60s were even better, but I think after the war was when the car really, really took off in America from a styling and from a thing that everybody had to have.
Okay, well let's play a little game here then. What do you think had a bigger impact on the average citizen, which would define the car industry, since we're talking about it's a car country? Either A, the Model T, Henry Ford making a car cheap, or the post-war, the interstate highways and the advancement, because I'm thinking Henry Ford made the average guy think he could own a car, and then making that a reality. Although you really couldn't go very far because the roads. Then after the war, that mentality goes into a generation that thinks it's okay to have a car, and now they can get places.
Two different arguments.
Okay.
Because the Model T, which really put America on wheels, was cheap and affordable. Okay, which Henry Ford but the Model T, you could use it on the farm. There were attachments that made it
a tractor.
Things. It was a tractor. It was a cultivator. I mean,
I even saw one that had half-track tracks on the back for traction.
Yes. The Model T was like the Swiss Army knife of cars.
It was more of a truck than a car.
Right. I mean, and then, they were very primitive, but they were relatively indestructible. But they were cheap.
The proto-family truckster.
Right. After the war, when everybody came back, and they hadn't produced cars during the war, so you really couldn't get a new car because they were the same as the ones from the late 30s, early 40s when the war started, because everything switched over to production. That was when the stylists took over. That was when the Harley Earls and those guys took over, and they made the cars look like something that everybody wanted to have. Then you had the interstate highway system. Then you had motels, you had drive-in, car hop type restaurants.
Okay.
It changed the culture more in the 50s and into the 60s than it had previously in the country.
So let me ask it from a performance standpoint. You've got the late 30s Indy racers. How fast do you figure those things went?
they went about 100, 120 miles an hour, maybe.
And then 30 years later, how fast are they going?
They went 170.
Okay. All right. Now,
because you got to remember, that's when they discovered aerodynamics.
Which is dovetails with where we're going to go next, because I wanted to talk about the evolution of cars because I wanted to compare that to the evolution of aviation. But there's a very important point that has to be made before I start getting into aviation. As much, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am, the development of the car was restricted as much by the roads and tire technology as anything else.
Correct.
Okay? Even you could build, they probably could have built a 200-mile-an-hour car in the 40s or 50s if they'd had some place to drive it.
Well, look, if you look at the Fords, the Auburns, the Duesenbergs, which they were the performance cars of the 30s, who were the people who had them? The very wealthy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where did most of them live? Out in the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had roads. Okay? Now, to make that point about if you could drive it fast enough, they'd make a faster car, all of the important records in the 30s were set by the Nazis because they did them on the Autobahn that they built.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you had the auto unions that set all these ridiculous, speed records, but that's because Germany built the Autobahn. So you had a place to do it.
Yeah.
And you didn't have that network, which when Eisenhower saw it, that was when he sort of put it together and said, when he became president, that I want an interstate highway system so we can connect the country and then we can move things back and forth at a relatively rapid pace. Well, that's when cars started, they came out with the V8 after the war.
Well, actually, I thought that, didn't they have the V8 before the war? Didn't
they did.
Didn't Clyde Barrow write a letter to Ford or somebody about how he loved their V8s?
No, they weren't. They were like straight eights.
Oh, okay.
Then they came out with the V8, and Ford had the flathead, which the hot rodders loved, and they love still to this day. Then the thing that really changed the whole thing was when Chrysler invented the Hemi and Chevy invented the 283 small block in the early 50s. And then Oldsmobile had the Super 88, and then it was like, it was how fast you could go. It was never about how safe was the car until like the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that, it was a lot of things that fell into place, as the cars became developed. But the biggest leaps in development were after the war.
Well, Sarah Jane points out that before the war, the Germans were hitting 180 in what would later become Formula One. Well, I wanted to talk about the advance in car tech because I wanted to follow up with a comparison that's not really a fair comparison, but it's the aviation. So here we have one of America's Sterling bombers but not Sterling aircraft. I'm saying Sterling as a snide way of it's made of Sterling. It's a great machine. This is one of our Air Force's primary bombers in 1929. And this biplane was consistent with the technology of the day. It was not behind the times. And by the way, Ken, it's going to lead into what you were asking about in our little pre-show chat. So, 1929, open cockpits, fixed landing gear, biplane, fully rigged. A sturdy airplane. But I want you to look at what we were flying 10 years later. The early model, the prototype B-24 Liberator. So this is 10 years of advancement in aviation. Now, mind you, I admit, first off, aviation had a lot further to go. And secondly, when you're in the sky, you don't have to worry about the condition of the roads. It's just how fast you can make the thing go. But just a quantum leap in only 10 years. And by the way, I don't think I failed to point out that I think 39 was the year the Germans started flying their early jets. So, in 49,
wasn't the advancements in aviation largely driven by the engines? I
mean, they could
okay.
build a big bomber like that, but you couldn't fly it because you didn't have the power for it.
Well, that's part. The engine tech was a big deal, especially after reading that book on the secret horsepower race of World War II. You start to really appreciate what was going on. But then in '49, the British fly the Comet, which completely redefined aviation for all time.
And that's only 10 years after this.
Yes, everything here is in 10-year increments. Now, before I go any further, first off, if when I was a kid buying models, or you know, the box art sells, and we're going to show some later what we're talking about, but the artwork for a biplane like that, I'm sorry, there is no angle from which you paint that airplane that it's going to look sexy. Okay, whereas the Comet, you could paint it from almost you could draw it from almost any angle, and it just looks like a spaceship.
You could paint it flat black, and it would look great.
Which, by the way, a real quick side note, the Comet, as you will tell, had the 4 engines buried inside the wing root, which is an aerodynamically superior design. But the Boeing and Douglas and pretty much everybody else hung the engines on the outside on pods because if the thing catches fire, it's nestled up by the fuel, by the passengers, whereas if it's hanging out on a pod. So this is one of the only airliners, other than a couple of Russian ones, that ever use this configuration. But I don't blame them because it really has a lot of aerodynamic advantages. The Comet's one of the probably, when it came out, the cleanest airplane ever made, aerodynamically speaking. And it was a fantastic... And once I got the bugs worked out of it, the Comet 4s actually were pretty good airplanes. But we all know, what happened later on. But...
So a little too late.
Yeah, it's regrettable. Then 1959 rolls around, and we are literally flying airplanes into space. I mean, it's not even some of the X-15 pilots got their astronaut wings. So, another 10-year increment here, but it's just, each one of these steps, I would say, qualifies as a quantum leap. And then, of course, 10 years after that, we have 2 vehicles that are still, the bellwether machines that we measure things by today. The Concorde and the Apollo, that's Apollo 11 lifting off. They both, that's 69. So I don't think, with the possible exception of electronics, which I think that revolution came later once everything was digitized, I can't think of very many sciences that have moved as fast as aviation. Unfortunately, 1969, in my humble opinion, is the absolute... That's when we hit the asymptote. That's when it peaked. We really haven't surpassed any of that because the technology's changed a lot, but...
economic barriers.
Yeah. I mean, in '79, we've got the space shuttle rolls out, although it didn't fly yet. And here's something that when I was doing this, I was going, oh gosh, this is a little scary. 1989, we get the stealth bomber. And then I realized, you realize the stealth bomber, the B-2, is 35 years old?
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I was like, well, that was and the space shuttle never lived up to, although it was a great vehicle. NASA flat out lied about what it's capable. They knew there was no way they were going to get, payload to space for $1,200 a pound. That's one of the most expensive programs we ever had. But I mean, it just staggers you to think about how fast it all happened. There were a lot of people. I mean, you realize there's 40 years between that biplane and the Concorde and the Apollo 11. I mean, just kind of stop and digest that for a second. That's just 40 years of development. And
According to NASA, it was supposed to be a space truck.
Well, I got to be careful. I wound up going down the NASA rabbit hole. We're going to be here all night. Um, when Apollo 11, when the astronauts, when they landed on the moon and said, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. When he said that, everything changed for NASA. We put a man on the moon, which sadly was more of a political goal than a scientific one. Although great science came out of it as a byproduct. But they'd already paid for several more missions, but basically the money ran out pretty quick after that. You realize we only went to the moon for 3 years. Because, okay, we did it. We got the trophy. That had a lot to do with it, but it was more than that. All of a sudden, the political will. I mean, it's like winning the Super Bowl. Okay, you want to play it? You want to play you want to play a fifth quarter? Yeah, I mean, no. Why? The game's over. Everybody go home. Okay.
What do you do now? Go to Disney.
The Concorde had the advantage of being obviously continuing service, reusable. This is one of the reasons that the Concorde and the Apollo, you can go to almost any hobby shop, and if they sell models, there'll be a model of one, if not both of them, because everybody made models of them. Airfix, Revell, I mean, just everybody wanted one. I mean, I've got one right here. But the leap and bound, I mean, it's. But then we hit the wall. I'm like, great, we've done this. Now what? And to guys like us who love to build models and stuff, hey, we just keep building models of them. But the people who are paying, billions of dollars to keep these programs alive, like, hey, we got other problems. And it's like we quit trying. Of course, the goals shifted. And there was no question that the military goals, they realized one thing they learned in Vietnam real quick was high and fast ain't going to get it because they're shooting down our bombers. And that kind of brings up the thing you were talking about, Ken. People hate to hear this because one of the most beloved airplanes out there, of course, is the B-17. But there have been some, little documentaries popping up online about how it was really an outdated airplane. And the sad truth is, when the war broke out, it was pretty much, it needed to be replaced. And as we were talking about, technology was advancing, but the B-17, there wasn't much you could do with it. It was a 1930s design, and people were making 400 and 500 mile an hour fighter planes that were armed with cannons and flak guns that could go all the way up to any altitude the B-17 could get up to. The Norden bomb site never lived up to any of its promises. They would have been better off the Sperry bomb site probably, but that gets into politics. And then, but even with the Sperry bombs, that wasn't going to make that much difference. That's why, the 8th Air Force had to stand down because they were losing so many airplanes. So when they say the airplane was obsolete, that's where they're going. And unfortunately, the numbers don't lie. They're not wrong. If we had B-29s in 1942, it would have been a very different air war. And, that's the way it goes. And speaking of, we can run down that rabbit hole another time. The B-36, people forget we didn't know if England was going to be able to survive. Everybody thought the Germans were going to invade. The Germans thought the Germans were going to invade. And so we said, well, we've got to have a hemispherical bomber where we can take off from Greenland or even New York or Maine and go bomb Europe. And they came up with this monstrosity. And although I have to admit, you cannot watch the movie Strategic Air Command and not fall in love with the elegance and beauty of a B-36 flying through the clouds. That being said, just look at that and stop for a second and think about the amount of national treasure that goes into making something like that. I mean, it's an aluminum overcast. Good Lord, how many mobile homes could you make with the aluminum that's in that thing? How many car bodies could you make? And
there's one in the Wright-Patterson Museum in Dayton. The thing is huge.
I've been there, and it's inside now. There's a tube that runs, from the two compartments, fore and after the wing. And you see it in the movie Strategic Air Command when Jimmy Stewart goes wheeling through it on the little dolly. And when I went there, God, it's been 30 years now. First thing I did was walk up under it and look up and see that tube. I'm like, there it is. You know, it's like not for claustrophobics. But this airplane could have ended up as a World War II bomber had the war dragged on. So, and a lot of people, and this is something we're going to get into in a second. A lot of people like how come we didn't use them in the Korean War, because we had them, and the B-29s, at first ruled supreme until the MiG showed up, and the B-29 by the Korean War, the B-29 was an outdated bomber. One even say the B-36 was outdated because it was just happening so fast. But you get this model as a kid, and it probably had about 30 pieces to it, and it's Aurora, so I wouldn't count on it being highly accurate. But you just I want to fly one of those when I grow up and join the Air Force. But the airplane actually didn't really have that long of a service life, but it was primarily a nuclear delivery platform. And then the Korean War comes along. We send B-29s over, drive conventional bombing, and they rule the sky. So the North Koreans go to their puppet masters and scream for help. They give them MiG-15s, and all of a sudden we're losing B-29s at an alarming rate. And and they're like, guess what? B-29, which is not even a 10-year-old airplane at this point, is now officially obsolete. Well, that's okay. We have the B-36. Oh, no, that thing's not outrunning a jet. And I think the Air Force was keenly aware that the B-36 wasn't going to last long against jet fighters either. So, of course, the answer to that is Strombecker. Let's build this B-47 Stratojet. Now, these models came out, I actually think the B-36 came out first, kit, and you can tell that Aurora and Strombecker had very different ideas on what sells kit model airplanes. Because, you got to give Aurora credit for when this thing came out. This is big color box art, it's impressive, shows the airplane in a graceful pose, and got the contrails and everything. And then Strombecker puts this gray pencil drawing, which is, admittedly, is a very good pencil drawing, but it's just like, oh, let's just put that on the box. Kids will buy that. And I don't think the psychology of kit box art had quite caught up with him yet. But the which brings us to something that I realized. I made the mistake, as I occasionally do, of going on YouTube and looking up old AIP movies. And you guys know I love, the cheap, quick-made independent films. And I've always loved AIP for that they could put out so many films so quick. And then I made the mistake of seeing this movie. Have you ever seen a John Agar film? And I know John Agar had his issues, getting work from time to time. I guess I don't know what happened to his career, but
he was an alcoholic. That's what happened.
That's what I thought happened. Yeah, him and gig gang seemed to be the fashionable thing in Hollywood in those days. All the leading men were alcoholics. But by God, this has got to be the worst movie. I found that it made I at least Plan 9 from Outer Space had an original-ish plot. And, this has got to be the worst military movie I've ever seen. And that's including Suicide Commandos with Aldo Ray, where they put a sniper scope on a Sten gun. Oh, God. What this was an hour of stock footage with some cheesy acting in the middle and a ludicrous plot. Which, by the way, I found out it was part of a 2-package movie deal. I think Suicide Battalion was the one that came with it. But at least Suicide Battalion was very loosely based on a real person. But I'm serious. Normally I would say, guys, get your popcorn, go watch this B movie out on YouTube for kicks and giggles. Don't. Absolutely don't. It is nothing but very poorly arranged stock footage. And they even talk about the Air National Guard unit that provided most of the airplanes, but it's just a bunch of stock footage of some old gun camera footage and some cheesy acting and just. And yeah, I'm going to get away with this by stealing a North Korean uniform. Dude, you're a 6-foot American. Yeah, you're going to blend. Oh, God, it was so bad. And then I saw...
Jet-propelled Dames.
Huh?
Jet-propelled Dames.
Now, here's the thing that's interesting. Except for John Agard, I've never heard of anybody else that's in this movie.
You've never heard of Audrey Totter?
Nope. Nor James Dobson.
Why?
Or Victor Sen Young. He must have been the token North Korean, person.
I guess, but I mean, I get it. It's made on a budget, but I mean, I think their budget was their lunch money. And the other thing is
I
that,
guarantee you, it didn't take them a week to make.
well, the sad part is the artwork for the poster is actually kind of cool, except it shows F-86Ds, and I'm pretty sure the D model didn't serve during the Korean War, but but it gets better. Then I went and saw this gem, Hell's Horizon, and it's much better than Jet Attack, which is saying absolutely, or Fighter Attack, which is saying absolutely nothing, But you will notice.
Why say don't watch it when all you do is encourage me to watch it now?
Well, part of my evil plan to be a jerk. So, but here's the thing: these are both Korean War movies, and I mean, you want to see a good Korean War movie, go watch The Bridges at Tokori or some Port Chop Hill. But the thing about this movie is it's very stock. It's just your yeah, we're going to send one B-29 in bad weather on a lone mission to bomb a critical target. We're not going to send the whole squadron with fighter support. No, we're just going to send the one airplane. And with a crew that are all fighting over the laundry lady, and that's exactly what her character is. So for the record, Larry Pinnell is the one that wins her heart in the end. Always like Larry Pinnell.
Yeah, but it had Beaver's dad in it.
Oh, Hugh Beaumont. Yeah, that's right. And they had some guy who's a famous trumpet player, and he's the character of they got Larry Purnell down there. And it's Chet Baker in the bottom right. And spoiler alert, he's the crew member that doesn't make it. Why did they kill the trumpet player? But
did they fly B-57s in the movie?
No, that's where I was going. That was I was going to get they're flying a B-29, but they put Canberras on the artwork, and I'm like, wait a minute, the Canberra wasn't in Korea. But I learned that the Canberra actually did come out during the before the Korean War was over. It was still in testing. It never saw combat. And the A model, which has the British-style bubble canopy on it, the Americans later on their B models put the tandem seat on it. We did have a small number of these A models that were set up British-style. But, and I was thinking, I mean, this is even painted the same way. Wait a minute. Now, the one in the artwork's actually the later B model of the tandem seats. And I got confused. Like, wait a minute. The Canberra comes out in 53, and it's on an artwork of a movie that came out in like 55, so what's the story? When they're flying a B-29 in the movie, mind you, it's mostly a stock footage B-29. But trying to scratch my head over that one. But
okay, this picture you showed the B-57, that's got the English cockpit on it.
Right, but the first ones that we built over here, it was a small batch.
Yeah.
We built that way. That was the A model.
Yeah, because it was under license.
Right. But Martin was very busy redesigning the airplane the way the American Air Force wanted it. Now, if you look in the poster, you see it's got the tandem cockpit, the one guy behind the other. Yeah. And they only made a small number of these A models. Most of them were converted to the Recon model.
There's an A model in the Air Force Museum north of Salt Lake, just like that one.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people don't know they always think of the Americanized version. They don't realize we actually use a small number of those. And but I just found it interesting that they've got an airplane that existed when the movie was made, obviously, but they're flying B-29s in the movie, and they got like B-52s in the background with swept wings and everything. I'm like, what is going on here? And And I just kind of scratched my head. Again, a movie that's really not. It's boring. It's slow.
And what movie was Marla English famous for?
You tell me.
The She-Demon.
Ah, another classic.
Yes.
But this got me to think.
About the Canberra.
What's
the
that?
British model that they had. The bombardier actually had to climb down underneath the pilot into his compartment that he used for bombing. The Americans decided, nah, we're not going to do that.
Nah. Also, there's a Canberra in Titusville. It's a late model. It's a British one. And behind, and it's got this style cockpit, but a lot of people don't know about where it says Force on Air Force on the side of the plane. It actually has two rearward-facing ejection seats in there for systems operators. These are, I believe, the later recon models. So, and there was also a version that has swing-out nose. The Bombardier actually opened the nose up, swung it sideways, got in his seat, and then pulled it shut and closed it and locked it up. And you can see it out on YouTube. Airplane with a lot of iterations. Interesting design. I was always surprised that we didn't just design our own airplane, but it met all the needs that the Air Force had. It's an unusual looking airplane, but it works, you know. And
I always thought it was a cool looking plane.
it is, but it was just, it's so different than anything else. And there's one of the few of them where the engines are just sitting right in the middle of the wing. You don't see that design used very often. And there's still
also had an interesting way to start the engines too. You
Oh,
had a cartridge in the nose of the engine that you had to ignite, and it shot out all kinds of smoke. And more than one lineman mistook the airplane for being on fire.
Yeah, they sent the fire trucks out more than once. You can go out on Wings or on YouTube and see it, and he's not kidding. The black smoke that thing was, it was gunpowder charged basically, and it burned. And the smoke that came out of that thing could just about make the airplane disappear.
It was very black.
It was a lot of it too. That's a lot of engine. You got to spool that engine up to a high RPM, and that takes a while. So the charge has to burn a long time. That's like when you see Jimmy Stewart in the Flight of the Phoenix using the cartridges to try and start the old radial engine. And I'm like, I had to have my dad explain that to me. And he's kind of like, because he was a radial engine mechanic, he's like, if you're down to trying to do a cartridge start, you're already in a world of trouble.
I always wondered about that.
But
like James points out, NASA has 3 of them, and they're out of Houston, and they just had a thing on CBS Sunday News about them because they get all kinds of data.
Oh yeah, and not only that, they those have the huge wings on them. That's like the WRB-57F or something. It's got ridiculous looking wings. It's basically a poor man's U2. But it just shows how really incredibly durable the platform is. So I read, you don't hear much about the Canberras or the Martin B-57s in Vietnam, and I read some stories written by pilots that flew them. Holy crap, these guys definitely had their share of adventures. Out flying at night and everything, low level and doing all kinds of stuff, and doing aerobatics at night to dodge missiles and everything. Jeez. And, coming down super low, Flight of the Intruder stuff. Well, I saw these movies and this poster and the fact that they had the B-57, like, okay, they got an airplane that really didn't make the war. And then I started thinking, what are some aircraft that almost made the Korean War but just missed it? And, of course, we talk about the B-36, but that was a nuclear asset. Okay, that was a strategic bomber for dropping nukes. We weren't going to use that over Korea because that wasn't its mission. The B-29s can handle it. When the jets showed up, we bloody well weren't going to put them in harm's way because those things were freaking expensive. So we stayed with the B-29s and let them take it on the chin. And the B-47 didn't get out in time. It came out, it flew in 53, same as the Canberra, but it wasn't ready for prime time. So it missed the war. But there is an airplane that was in inventory. We all know the famous, Panther jet from Bridges at Tokyo-ri and Men of the Fighting Lady. But and this is old Mike Machette's artwork for Ladella. But the Swept Wing Cougar was actually in service, in fleet service. It came out in 52 and made fleet service in 53. Now, that would have been a rude awakening for those MiGs if they'd come up and seen that thing, because it had a lot of it. Now, mind you, the Panthers held their own pretty well against MiGs, even though they were at a speed disadvantage. There are several dogfights where they could outturn the MiG, and as long as they kept it on the horizontal, they had with the guys. Some of them scored multiple kills, but the Cougar could have changed that equation. And they were actually, from what I read, they were actually on the ships on their way out when the armistice, the ceasefire came. So they came very close to seeing combat in Korea, but missed. And we all know the little H-13 MASH helicopters and the H-19 Chickasaws that they used. But the old, the big CH-UH-34, the big Sikorsky, think Riptide, that was actually almost made the war. They were about a year too late. And that would not have been a day and night difference, but it could haul a lot more. It would have been a little more effective. But the airplane that always surprised me, because you think of it being so advanced, that came out only a year after the Korean War, is a Starfighter. It flew in 54. Can you imagine these things showing up in the skies of North Korea? Oh, that would have really, coming in at Mach 2, that really would have woken them up. They would have seen those F-104s coming in. They would have thought we were shooting missiles at them. But and this
they would have come up with something too.
Oh, no. Ken, they didn't have anything that could touch the F-104 for a while. When the MiG-21 came out, yeah. Before that, nah. Of course, the 104 had pretty short range. But and this is the Hawk kit that had the chrome. And
I saw that kit at the hobby store in Annapolis. Remember I sent you a picture of it?
Yeah. But there were parts missing. I think it was pretty rough shape. But
yeah, there were parts missing. I was going to buy it, but there was missing parts. And the decals were shot. But that was cool that it was in chrome, actually.
It was, but I was saying the only problem that I have with it being in chrome is, you gotta sand down the mating part, so the glue will bond.
But you gotta glue it, yeah.
Yeah, but also you can't really sand down the joints or anything, because you'll the chrome off. But the other thing is that when you put
this thing wouldn't fit flush, being as old as it was.
No, because I actually have one that I built. It wasn't chrome, but it was the same kit, and it's not. It's okay. My one's technically was testers, and it's kind of a low detail kit. Which you got to remember, these coming out in the 50s, but these were originally might have been it was a Hawk kit, I think, originally. Yeah, it was. This is the Hawk one. I did love that Hawk put them out in chrome. It was just kind of cool, but they really didn't have to chrome everything. Look, I got a chrome pilot.
Tires. Yeah.
Chrome tires. Yeah.
They just threw it in the chrome machine. Let it go.
It's like cop shocks, cop motor.
Yeah.
But they look spiffy. Of course, the decals, when you put the decals on it, the edge film and everything showed really well on the chrome. But it was a novelty thing. But I don't know. It was just one of those things that was just, I had the OV-10 in chrome, I had the Skymaster in chrome, and I think I had the F-104 in chrome. And it was one of those things that, when you're 10 years old, that's cool.
Yeah, it is.
And
because most of your kids have fingerprints on them anyway.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, it's not like I was setting any standards.
That's like his signature. That's how he knows he made it.
Yeah, it's funny. Chuck just says that the intakes on the kit look off. Yeah, because they don't have the diffuser, the pointy, conical ram air diffuser compressor sticking out that they should have. It is on the kit, but it's just a little bump. No question, the monogram kit is infinitely superior. I have one of each on the shelf, and I painted the.
But it's not chromed.
No. In fact, I painted the Hawk when it was so low detail. I just went ahead and painted it up as a drone, and had the other F-104 chasing it. But still, then again, these guys weren't trying to win awards for accuracy. They were trying to sell kit models, and it was shiny, and we like shiny. It's the jewelry airplane. But
the problem with that is you had to open the box to see it.
Yeah. Well, back when they didn't sell all the boxes, that wasn't much a, you just looked left, you looked right, and then you just slit the tape on the bottom, and but you went. And because I was
the guys who were building it at the time didn't care. They just thought, "Ooh, go fast looking, nice airplane."
Yep, that's it. That was the standard of the day. Then Tamiya came by and ruined everything. But another airplane that also almost made the Korean War was the F-84F. Now, a few of you sharp guys out there have already noticed that the F-84F has swept wings, but the later F-84G has straight wings. And just real quick, the F-84F was one of those weird things that they wanted to put us. The F-84G was basically an F-84, I think E, but it could do aerial refueling and had a few of the changes. But they wound up having some problems with it. Somebody said, hey, let's put a swept wing on this thing. They redesigned the airplane. It's barely an F-84. In fact, I think it's kind of cheating calling it an F-84. But Republic basically designed a really cleaned up airplane. And the next letter in the alphabet was F. And it goes in, and apparently they got it done a lot quicker than they expected. And it rolled out, and the F-84G, which the following letter, well, I got that backwards. The F-84G got out real quick, and the F was still in development. So they basically got out of sequence. The swept wing airplane actually has an earlier designator than the last straight wing version. And this airplane was a huge improvement. And if it had made the Korean War, that would have been on par with the F-86. But the one that also
Aviation makes an interesting point. He said the F-104 chased down the Enterprise.
Yeah, look what happened.
Yeah.
But another airplane that flew in 54 was the F-100. And I tell you what, that's another airplane that would have been a real eye-opener for the bad guys. Of course, it had a rough gestation period. And in fact, Wheaties Welch, one of the guys who shot down several Japanese planes at Pearl Harbor, was killed test flying one of them. But that's another example of an airplane. If it had made the Korean War, it would have been a game changer in the air war up there, because it was a supersonic jet, and it would have made quick work of anything they sent up. And one other airplane that you don't, again, you think of the F-100, you think of Vietnam, you don't realize it almost made Korea. Of course, a lot of people don't realize that, it's like only 10, 12 years between the two wars. But the A-4 Skyhawk, that's another one that flew just a year after the war, and had things gone on a little longer, we could have seen under the skies of Korea. And of course, it was really more of a bomber attack aircraft, but still.
Interesting to think about. Yeah, if the war had lasted a little bit longer for some of these more advanced aircraft to go into service, the war would have turned out very differently.
Possibly. The air war probably would have, because the, I don't know, the MiG-19, they could have given a challenge to an F-100, but the F-100 and all these other jets could have just decided to run away because they had such a speed advantage. The one airplane that also came out in 54 that we're probably lucky it didn't go over there was the Gutless. And I always loved this airplane. I know it was a train wreck, but the F-7U Cutlass it looks like a spaceship. I mean, you expect this. Let me put it this way. If you had taken out the Y-Wings in Star Wars and put in the Cutlasses as stand-ins, it would have worked. When I was a kid, I had a model of the Cutlass, a little one. I was trying to make a Super 8mm space movie. I took a MiG-21 and cut the wings in half, pulled off the tail fins, and made and this was before Star Wars, made almost look like TIE Fighter up-down winglets for the tail and for the wing. And my other ship was this airplane with the fins on upside down. That's all I did, and it looked like a spaceship. Of course, it was a very trouble-plagued airplane with extremely high accident rate, but just pushing a few. But it was a Mach 1 airplane. Blue Angels even toyed with it for a little while.
Between those two pictures.
The
fuselage is very different between those two pictures.
Well, there were a lot of different variants of the airplane, but I don't know which one's more accurate. I think the lower one's more accurate. I think the one on top was a real early one. Either they're attacking their own aircraft carrier or they're in the weirdest traffic pattern I've ever seen.
They're kamikaze pilots.
But you know what? It helps sell. You know, they're trying to sell the model, and it does have a dramatic feel to it. Although I think the lower box art is much better. And
Whose kit would be above one? Lindbergh?
I think so. It's either Lindbergh or Aurora, but I think it's.
What does it say at the top? Lullaby?
What?
Up at the very top?
Yeah, by Lindbergh. It says by Paul Lindbergh. It's a Lindbergh kit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there it is. A little tech.
Under cutlass. Yeah.
Hold on, let me.
No, it says by Paul Lindbergh. Right
By Paul Lindbergh. There it is. Yeah. So yes, it is a Lindbergh kit. Yeah. And and these kits didn't have a lot of parts to them. I mean, most kits back then didn't. But this was one of those kits.
For 79 cents, what did you want?
Yeah, really. But that's back when 79 cents was 79 cents. I mean, that was 3 weeks allowance.
That was a lot of money back then.
Heck yeah, man.
3 weeks allowance.
You had to deliver a lot of newspapers to buy that puppy. But he says early version of the Cutlass. Okay, that makes sense. Because they went to... You know, the thing is, if that airplane had some decent engines, and, of course, if, you know, that's a big if, but if it had some decent engines, and they could have gotten the innards work out, it was fast, and it apparently, once in the air, it really did fly good, but getting them on the carriers was nothing short of dangerous. And you can go out on YouTube, there's plenty of footage of them cracking up landing. They had an 11-foot landing gear strut, and you know, God bless them for trying though. But the engines were so weak they called it the Gutless, or also known as the Ensign Eliminator. Although I don't think they had any ensigns flying them. But anyway, but these jets, all of them, were at the Korean War had gone on a little longer. You know, we think of a lot of these airplanes we associate them with the Vietnam War, but if Korea had gone on a few years longer, a lot of these airplanes would have been in Korea, and we tend to forget not as much separates those two wars as time wise and everything, but culturally they're different parts of history. And
Chili Billy says they're both accurate. The Dash 1 was much sleeker than the Dash 3.
Ah, okay. Well, all right. There you go.
Lance says the 3 was a different airframe and it carried missiles, which the 1 didn't.
Okay. Well, that because there you go. That explains the arrangement here with the missiles on the Dash 3. And I guess probably just guns on the Dash 1. But I think the F-104 is the one that would have freaked them out the most if it had gotten into Korea, because they would have, what the heck is that? They're shooting missiles at us. And they're suicide pilots because they have a man inside them.
Speed is life.
Heck yeah, baby. You know, and Canberras. But I don't know if the B-47s, if we had gotten the B-47 in time, I don't know that it would have gone to Korea, though, because the B-47 was essentially a nuclear asset. But who's to say? You never know. Who's to say with Kurt LeMay?
I remember watching that Jimmy Stewart movie where he was a B-36 pilot.
Yeah, Strategic Air Command.
He took off. He took off and flew up from, I think it was from
Carswell.
On the West Coast.
No, it's Carswell in Texas. And they profile mission to Alaska.
Yeah, flew up to Alaska and came back, and he came home and told his wife, and she says, "Yeah, right."
Yes, I'm telling you, we went to Alaska. Yeah, that airplane was a pretty impressive piece of hardware. But Ken, getting back to what you asked earlier, though, the B-36, the B-17, all these piston engine bombers were pretty much outdated before they ever got into service. Not because of a design flaw or anything, or performance as far as what bombers could do. The problem is an airplane's obsolescence is often based on, you know, two things. One, its inability to do the job. Well, primarily, its inability to do the job is what makes it obsolete. The fact that there were now jet fighters, or in the case of World War II, extremely high-speed cannon-armed piston fighters, they could go shoot the bombers down. They were obsolete because they couldn't get the job done. That's essentially what rendered them obsolete. They were as modern for the most part. I mean, the B-24 was a little newer, slightly more modern than the B-17. It was tricycle gears, a little faster, a little bit longer range, could carry a higher payload. Of course, the B-17 was arguably a tougher airplane, but the aerodynamics of the B-24 were superior. And I've talked to guys who flew both of them. Apparently, neither one of them were a great joy to fly. The airplane everybody seemed to enjoy flying was a B-25 Mitchell. They were like, oh, that was a dainty little airplane. And the B-26 Marauder seemed to terrify its crews, but they didn't have any accidents. They actually had a high survival rate because they were so fast. But these airplanes they could all be chased down by fighters. And they just, the only quote unquote truly modern bomber, I mean, that was nowhere near obsolete, was the B-29. It flew higher. The Japanese had to make special fighters just to get up there after them. And they could fly so high and so fast, although they learned about the jet stream the hard way, and that hurt them. But it truly, you know, with remote controlled guns and everything pressurized, that was truly a modern bomber, which is why they stayed in service after the war. You're not even one way you can tell a piece of equipment is obsolete is when the shooting stops. It's the first thing in the boneyard, and
well, I don't think that same argument still holds up today because we still got B-52s.
Okay, the B-52 it's in a category of its own. But let me tell you right now that the B-52 is an obsolete platform and there's a big if here, okay, if we go up against a near-peer threat, right? But for doing what it does, I hate to use this phrase, but let's call them optional wars or low-intensity wars or however you want to phrase it. They're a bomb truck. What has kept the B-52 relevant? The B-52 has three things that have kept it relevant. An extremely long range, okay, without aerial refueling, an almost unlimited range with aerial refueling, the ability to be upgraded, and of course standoff weapons. The B-52 is essentially a bomb truck, but with JDAMs and advances in technology, look, you can make a bomber these days with modern missilery. If you're dealing with first world hardware, you can make a bomber out of a Boeing 737. Well, the Navy did. You know, the Poseidon is
does that a lot.
You know, because it's a solid platform. Oh boy. Okay, let's not hit the Boeing comments. I just, as soon as I said that, I was like, maybe I want to reel that one back a little bit. But for this argument, they haven't built a B-52 since they built me, since I was in kindergarten. I was gonna say they haven't built a B-52 since they built me, but I think they built them for about 2 more years. But the role of the bomber has changed a lot. You're not likely to see bombers flying over a heavily defended target at altitude, dropping bombs the way you did in World War II, because that's just not how it's done anymore. That against a near-peer threat, that's virtual suicide. I don't care what you're flying. The only airplane that could probably do that would be the stealth aircraft. Okay, if you can't see it, you can't shoot it. But and that's one reason stealth became the holy grail. You know, back in the days of the XB-70, it was all about speed. You know, we need the B-1 that goes fast. We need the XB-70. It can get out there at Mach 3, drop those bombs on those godless commies and come home. And then they were like, well, guess what? They've got Mach 4 missiles. So, oh, great. And the B-50, okay, Ken, you get back to talk about obsolete. Like how many B-52s we lost in Vietnam. The airplane was already vulnerable. And it's... But, okay, I also have to be careful at how you say this. The B-52 was intentionally designed, you know, to go to Russia and drop nukes at high altitude, because their air defenses couldn't get it. Once their air defenses were able to get it, the airplane, one could argue at that point, okay, it's now obsolete. Well, we'll change the mission profile and we'll come in low where they can't get us with radar. Very slim pickings in Dr. Strangelove. Okay, that's great. Still got long range, but it wasn't designed to fly down there. So what happens? You start getting wrinkled skin and bent wings, and the airplanes are constantly, going in for refits and upgrades and trying to keep it capable. The B-1 was an attempt to address the obsolescence of the B-52. But then the Cold War ended, well, now we got this great airplane, no need for it. But then all this starts getting changed when they start coming out with bombs, GPS and everything else. And hey, as Reagan once said, what I need is a bomb where all I need is the enemy's address. And GPS gave them that. And hey, look, we can put little rocket motors on these bombs, fly them 100 miles away from the bomber. You don't have to get near where the shooting's at. So now the bomber's relevant again. All of a sudden, it's not obsolete because it's just a bomb truck. But you put B-52s that, back in, you actually try to go over bad guy territory with them against somebody who's got, modern radar, et cetera, et cetera. It's not going to go well. So what's obsolete kind of varies with the threat you're facing. I mean, they were using the A-1 Sky Raider into the in the 70s. This is a World War II design, but nothing did the job better. And it's funny, that's an airplane that wasn't obsolete, although by all this right and holy, it should have been. And you realize that airplanes like the F-16, you realize these are 50-year-old designs? I mean, you think the F-15, the F-16, these are
optimized.
But
they've optimized them so much that you can't make a quantum leap in design technology because you're pushing up against physics.
Yes, and so now what do? They go, what's the single biggest limiting factor in an airplane? The pilot.
Right.
Because now we're
the other day with that little AI flight.
And that's because, and we're designing aircraft like this for a simple reason. No one in the general staff ever watched Terminator.
Maybe they should be a prerequisite in
military college.
Yeah, there you go, the military college. Maybe they should all see that movie.
Well, they should, but okay.
That'll be the new Top Gun Maverick. They'll have to go up and shoot down a wing of AI planes.
Well, actually, I think that was the original plan for Top Gun Maverick. He was going to be man against drones, and they decided to make it man. I mean, I read that somewhere, and they when that may have been when they were just guessing what the plot line was going to be. But fifth gen aircraft, ironically, even though that was I think an RC they were using, but ironically the maneuvers you saw that thing doing weren't really much of an exaggeration. The funny thing is the F-14 is actually faster than any of them. I mean, if Maverick had just gone wings back and laid the burners in, but like you said, we're not going to outrun their missiles, and that's true. And you burn your fuel so fast in burner, they probably wouldn't have made it back to the ship if they'd been, if they had done that. But the simple fact is that the F-14 and the F-111 are still a couple of fastest airplanes that were fielded. The F-15 will move also up at altitude.
Interesting thing about the 14. My good friend and neighbor, Gary, he worked at Grumman building F-14s. And he told me that the original design for the 14 only had a single tail.
Probably worked on the Vigilante.
When they tested it in the wind tunnel, it didn't work.
Okay. Doesn't shock me. It's amazing what little changes can ruin the aerodynamics of an airplane. You look at some airplanes that they should fly fine, they go, it's terrible. It's a disaster. They make some little tweak or something to it. Oh, okay, problem gone. But Ken, getting back to what you were saying, obsolete. Yeah, the B-17 was obsolete by war's end. So was the B-24 because planes like the Germans had jets and they were just but you fight the war with the machine you've got, with the military you have. You try to make developments as you can, but they've got to be rushing the combat so fast. None of these platforms were ever perfected before they were replaced. One of the reasons airplanes like the F-15, the F-16, the F-18, and even the B-52 have managed to stay relevant so long and even be world beaters is because they've had all this time to develop them. I guarantee you the F-15 or F-16 that rolls off, the F-15X that rolls off a production line today is not the airplane that rolled out in the 70s. It'll run rings around it. The F-22, they keep talking about retiring them. And, you know, you think, what do you mean? We just got them. And like, no, we've had them about 30 years now. But there's just no one that can touch it. The F-22 was built, or for that matter, the F-15 was built based on a lie. All right? The Russians said they had this MiG-25 that could do all this magical crap, so we designed an airplane that could beat it, only to get a MiG-25 and find out it couldn't do any of that. It could go fast, but that's it. Okay? So now we have this Wunderflugzeug that we don't really need, which is why I think it's 104-0. And, I mean, using an F-15 or using an F-22 borders on a war crime. I mean, it's just clubbing baby seals. So,
yeah, I remember you talking about the pilots that were flying on the sand.
Oh, God.
So easy.
Yeah, the F-22 pilots, like, they sent four F-15s against one F-22, and he got them all. And I asked him, well, I guess it was like clubbing baby seals. Because of all of his advanced digital crap. That's one of the things I think that led to the F-15X, which has all that digital stuff in it, so now it's more of a fair fight. And so now is the perfect time to shift gears onto the next subject for the movie, everybody's favorite, science fiction theater, AIP, and all those great companies that gave us movies like It, The Terror from Beyond Space. Now, yeah. Now, the reason I particularly wanted to talk about this was you couldn't be more 1958. We're talking about men and women from America in space, and they've got a bazooka.
And used it.
And they're all packing .45 automatics. And I'm kind of like, what happened to that culture? That's the America I love.
And they're smoking in the ship.
They're smoking in the ship, you know. And I was just like, oh my God. This is the world I was born into. Of course, in all fairness, unlike King Kong and some of these other movies where the evil humans go and abduct the poor innocent monster, this one, he crawled on the ship without their knowledge. They didn't try to steal him. You know, he was a legitimate going someplace he had no place being, and he's trying to eat them. In fact, he did eat a bunch of them, I think. Which brings the question, okay, wait a minute. Why does a creature from, was it Venus, right? Why does a creature... Mars. Why does a creature from Mars want to eat people? I mean, there's got to be some kind of food on Mars that he's used to.
It's a variety of diets.
I suppose he's going anti-paleo.
People here taste good. You've never eaten one.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy's kin.
The problem is, what did he do when he had to poop it when he got in the ship?
You know what? I'm just hoping he's like a shark and has really slow digestion. But I just love a movie where, I mean, you know, if there's one thing I can't stand is a movie where the protagonist is, you know, I'll have to fight him with my wits. Well, where's your weapons? That's why I like the Norris tapes. First thing he does when he goes to that gun cabinet, he gets out that Python 3D7. I'm like, not only is he picking a powerful handgun, he's picking one that has class. But you know, one doesn't have a hint of elegance. But I just love the fact that they're on a spaceship and somebody thought to bring a bazooka. That just always cracked me up about that movie. And I was like, you know, the funny thing is I can be at that meeting, at that pitch meeting. And my excuse would be, sir, on this mission, I think we should take a bazooka. What the heck for? Yeah, we may have to blast some rock samples. That's a good idea. Okay, take your bazooka.
You never know what you'll find on Mars.
You never know what you'll find on Mars. I'm going to tell them it's for blasting rocks to get samples, but I'm telling you what, I'm packing that bad boy with me in case there's a Mars monster waiting on me, because you don't know. And But it's the style, the way they made the movies back then. And you know what? They should have made a model of the of their ship because it really wasn't that bad looking. Uh,
No,
but
it wasn't.
but in I also saw the first spaceship on Venus, which I want to say was an East German film, and the special effects weren't half bad for. I think it was made in '59. AIP brought it over a year or two later and redubbed it, which I noticed AIP brought over a couple of Russian and Eastern European films, you know, made in the com block and reworded them. By the way, that little tank looking thing is a little probe about 3 feet long, which actually runs over one of the guys. But I was happy to see.
Mark brings up Mark brings up an interesting point. He says, "Not like they don't have the room for one."
There you go. Yeah, that's another thing. They made the ship spacious and gave it anti-gravity or gravity.
Sure.
Not sure how the gravity plating works. We'd go with it.
The ship's called the Cosmostrator. That three.
Yes, the Cosmostrator, and I love that Pegasus actually not only made a model of it, they made one in chrome. So they made a couple of models of it, and the picture will be up here in just a second. But I was like, there's a host of movies out there that don't have model ships made unless you go maybe to a resin maker, and I think it's I guess, you know, maybe the movies are so old they're not really viable for a major company to cut a mold, but I don't know. I know Pegasus did it, and I think there's still enough of a following. How many kits do you need to sell to make a mold worthwhile? That's the question.
Yeah. Meanwhile, so that little thing with the tracks, that's like the prototype for the Roomba.
Rumbatsky. But yeah, the little
JM
thing.
and Herman both say the Cosmostrator looks like a chandelier.
Chuck says it has too many tail fins.
Well, that's for Earth atmospheric flight, of course. But the Proto R2 there. But the special effects weren't really bad. I mean, the set design was pretty good, and I mean, they're supposed to be on a dilapidated Martian.
Talking about It, the Terror from Beyond Space, or another movie?
Well, I'm talking about first spaceship on Venus, but
okay.
but the Terror from Beyond Space, though, still it has a late 1950s, you know, technical aesthetic to it. You know, gauges, everything's analog. You know, you think about it, and of course, I'm just kind of making excuses for it. Well, it wouldn't be a bad way to make a spaceship because, you know, using stuff mechanical like that, all these mechanical dials and switches, would make it a little heavier, but probably a lot simpler, maybe even more reliable. You know, but
Go ahead, Ken. Go ahead. Crash says old sci-fi ages as well as vintage porn.
I'm not touching that one. But again, I just think there's some lost opportunities there. I'm glad. Just lately, I've kind of gotten a fascination with the old sci-fi stuff again. You know, I started working on that little aero car someone's been, a little Canadian Avro aero car. It's just a resin thing, 3 parts. But also, by the way, before I forget, Model Fest down in Melbourne, I did not get to go. I want to thank Fran for these pictures, but they had some of these builds I've actually seen at a few other model shows. I tend to forget that people take their models to more than one show. But man, there's some magnificent work there, and I remember seeing that one. I think at Jack's Con, and that one too, I think. But just beautiful technique on the stuff. And my problem is that once you build the stuff, you got to find a place to put it, and I'm running out of places. I was lucky. My wife, when I brought in the Arizona, we'll talk about that in a bit. I finished the Arizona. And she really liked it, so it's up on the mantle, which I did not expect, but I'm happy to see it there. And Fran said they had a Felix though. The guy wanted about $380 for it, or $350, And somebody, and it's funny because somebody just asked me, I think yesterday or the day before, if I got another one. I was like, that's like a year-long commitment. But if I got another one, there are certain mistakes I wouldn't repeat, which you're always going to make. But one
That's
thing,
nice. That spaceship.
The
spaceship was nice.
Which spaceship?
The one that you just put up there. Yeah, I guess the lag is.
Yeah.
I'm
not entirely sure if it was backward or kind of lost. Oh, that thing. Yeah. Some sort of lunar lander. That is not unlike what the early lunar landers were going to look like.
Yeah, that was a von Braun design.
It's based on it. I think the Strombecker kit was actually off von Braun's. But yeah, absolutely. That's and it makes sense. Now,
yeah, that one.
One thing I will tell you, if you want to be scientific, and this kit follows that rule, by the way. Any kind, most of your stuff's going to be painted white or a bright color to reflect light, to reflect heat. And that actually looks like a very realistic serviceable design, and looks like he's using some of the parts from that kit also, which is fine. It's it's a very realistic. It's not as sexy looking as a lot of other stuff, but it is very much that industrial look is very much
functional.
Yeah, and but the
that's because everything we were used to seeing in the 50s had this ultra streamlined look.
Well, yeah, that was a style. And you could make a streamlined spaceship if you wanted to, because in space it doesn't matter. But I warn anybody, if you get that Felix stove, this is what we were talking about yesterday, I think, Steve. What I would recommend, if you get a plane like that, is first you got to decide what version you want to build, because they give you a lot of extra parts because there's several versions, the early and the late one. So once you decide which you want, I would recommend getting something with large trays and drawers, because everything's alphabetized. The A runner, the B runner, and so on and so forth. So you can have it all set up and be easy to find parts, or because that thing, I've got an unboxing video way back when I started that thing, and there's 30 or 40 different, there's a whole bunch of, that thing is stacked. That box is packed tight with stacks of sprues. So get everything organized. Everything you're not going to use, put it in a zip bag somewhere and hide it. Okay, so it doesn't have a chance of getting in the way. It has excellent instructions. The instruction booklet on it is just that, a book. But look, as they say, measure twice, cut once. Double check everything. But the other thing is, it's got a completely detailed interior. If you're going to do that, that's up to you. A lot of the stuff you'll never see. But it even has decals for all of the piping. You're going to obviously pre-paint as much of that as you can and pre-decal before you put it together. Go slow. The engines, sort of God, they are so detailed. It's almost, it's amazing. And of course, the engines are completely exposed, so you're going to see all that work that you're doing. Just take your time, go slow. The biggest problem I had was painting the zigzag stripes on it, was staying oriented and keeping everything straight. That is about, what you see right there on the box art is about the most complex paint scheme you can put on it. There are some other fairly complex ones and fairly basic ones that aren't so out there, but as the dazzle patterns. But whatever you decide to do, you're going to need like a micrometer and everything so that you can keep everything spaced. It's really tricky and obviously very easy to mess up. But when you're
Was that a significant airplane?
What's that?
Was that a significant airplane?
In the naval battle, it was a Navy aircraft. It was U-boat patrol and hunting ships, and it's actually basically what they did was, it was a Curtiss flying boat. They made some for the British. The British liked it, but they needed it optimized for what they were doing. So they redesigned it and built it. It's based on the Curtiss airplane, but it is redesigned to their needs. It was made in Felixstowe, England, which is why it's called the Felixstowe. and they went through quite a few iterations. They enlarged the flaps on it and a few other or ailerons and some other things to make it more controllable. Apparently, by everything I've learned, both the Curtiss and the Felix, though, were really good airplanes for given the time, and very, very expensive, complex to build. They lost quite a few of them, but it was probably, and I'm saying this without really having read up I haven't read up on it in a while, but as I recall, its big contribution, obviously, is a search aircraft, but primarily hunting submarines, and that was its I think its primary function. But the thing is when you get done with it and you look at it, you just sit back and admire your work. I mean, if you go slow, take your time. One other thing, next time if I ever build another one like that, I am going to use the gas patch turnbuckles. But you're going to need a tool or something. And I think it was Trey told me that the 1/32 scale turnbuckles are too big. The smaller, like 1/48 scale turnbuckles, actually scale out a little better. I believe that's what he told me. But you're going to need a super tiny pin vise to make sure that they're clear. I'd recommend using Easy Line. I didn't use Easy Line when I built it, and if I had, the job would have been a heck of a lot easier. But some people just tie them off. But if you're going to get a model that expensive and go through all that work, I'd recommend, and the book tells you, they actually have in the wing little divots to show you where to take your pin vise and drill to put your your turnbuckle in. And you're probably going to need CA glue. Most guys pre-paint the wing, then drill the holes. You can, I would say a glue with an accelerator will speed things up. You're going to have to come back and touch up the paint. The nice thing about something like white glue is it doesn't really damage the paint, but it takes forever to harden. But it's a lot of fine detail work.
Francis said he would really like to have the book. It would make rebuilding it a lot easier.
Yeah, I can't find it. And you know what? I don't even know where the box went. I'm afraid it might have gotten lost in the move. But
I can't imagine you throwing away a book like that.
Well, not on purpose.
Yeah, but, you wouldn't do that.
Of course, friend, you could buy the other Felix though there, and then you'd have the instruction book.
That's no fun. Where's the challenge in that?
Fran, were you? It was the instruction book you were missing, right? Not the Wingnut Wings book that had a whole bunch of airplanes in it, including the Felix. By the way, that book, that Felix Stowe that guy built for the book, it was a 2-year build, and he put it in, which you're gonna have to give yourself that kind of time. And when it comes to rigging, I've kind of adopted what I call the 5-line rule. Don't try to rig more than 5 or 6 pieces at a sitting, because it starts driving you bonkers. And what really just burns is when you get it all done, you realize you put a couple of them in the wrong place because you got in a little bit of a hurry. Yeah, not a happy moment.
Yeah, a kit like that, when it's so accurate, you screw something up, you really got to go back and fix it.
There was one thing on this kit that happened when I built it, and it's not a huge deal, but over the engines, there are a couple of stays and a couple of cables, right? And they make like an upside down Y shape, like a slingshot turned upside down, and comes down off the wing, then it splits, and then it goes on each side of the engine and down to an anchor point. And the wings were on correctly, the engines were mounted correctly, everything was lined up, but for some reason, those stays actually rubbed against the engine and bowed out a little bit. And I was like, that shouldn't be happening. There should be a small gap, but everything was in place. I don't know. I'm not really sure what happened there. Yeah, the instruction book. Just let me your credit card and I'll put a $350 instruction book. Actually, I don't think $350 was that bad of a price for that, because it seems like, and it was probably just a temporary thing when they first said that they were going to quit making models. The prices on the Wingnut Wings planes got absurd. Let's see, Felix Stowe model.
I was just gonna say, what do they usually go for?
Let me see here.
What did they go for when they were making them?
My understanding, it was a gift to me. My understanding is they were $400 or $500. No, $289, $399. The late model, okay, they're all $400, $415. Well, one guy's got one here. Buy it now for $289 and $15 shipping. So that's the other one's $400, $415, and here's 2 Rodin 1/72 scale Felix. Those are $75. I'll pay you $75 not to have to take them. So I would spitball that $350. The $350 is a solid mid-range price, but there's someone claiming to have one for. So you're looking at about $315 and 100% positive rating with 7,000 sales. So, and it's exactly.
You gotta really, really like that model to want to pay that kind of money for something like that.
Well, Ken, you just sparked a thought, which is something I've warned you about doing. You get right down to it, Ken. I'm not sure that Felix Stowe isn't the single best modeling accomplishment I'd ever made.
Because it was so difficult?
Difficult, time-consuming, challenging. Great model, looked good when it was done. Had its problems. I built the airplane. I knew where all the uglies were. But still, I don't recall a model that I put that much effort into. Now, I've had other models that came out better, but they weren't as complex. Now, mind you, having said that, 90% of that complexity I'm talking about is the rigging. And that, on a lot of models, the rigging, or let me put it this way, every model has something that kind of makes or breaks it. With aircraft, a lot of times it tends to be the canopies. Okay? The first place most people go when they look at a model airplane is the canopy. See if it looks good, if it's crisp and has any blemishes on it. And they then on car, I don't know, Steve, what is the pinstriping, the windshield? What's the first thing people tend to look at on a model car?
Paint job.
Paint job, okay. Everything's got something. And if you guys are getting a little epileptic, sorry about that. That's me flicking through the timer trying to slow down the rate that the images change, lets you look at the pictures a little longer. But I didn't realize it would do that. I've never done it that way before.
I just thought I was stroking out.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of boring.
Do not adjust your dial.
We control the brightness.
Yeah, we control the vertical and the horizontal. By the way, that's not the new Godzilla, is it? I'm not sure which Godzilla that is.
Yeah, that's the one from the 1988 movie.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, the one that not even the Japanese want to talk about.
Is it Tokyo SOS or something? Or
No, the one that they made with Matthew, what's his name?
the 98.
Yeah.
Oh, was that Godzilla?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that the chin didn't look that big.
It just looks like a lizard.
Freaking iguana. But I gotta admit,
Max and I talked about that movie when it first came out. Yeah, when it first came out, and he said, correct me if I'm wrong here, when they took the model to show to the people who had the rights for Godzilla, they all looked at each other and said, "Yeah, let's make this movie," or something along those lines.
Yeah, what I read is that the guy from Face Off, is it Peter Tatopoulos, designed it, and he's a frequent judge on that show Face Off about Hollywood special effects. And what he did was he gave them what they asked for, all right. And now this could have just been a press release trying to put a happy face on it, But they said when they showed it to the Toho people that they were all excited about it. I don't know if that's actually happened or if that's just something they said out there to, oh yeah. And the movie came out, and I tried to enjoy it, and I sort of did a little bit. And like I told people, if you don't attach the name Godzilla to it, it's not that bad a movie. But you go out and watch, what is it? Was it Honest Trailers? And they just ripped it apart. Yeah. And I don't know. It didn't have the vibe or feel of a Godzilla movie. It, in some ways, some parts of it almost bordered more of a Scooby-Doo adventure. And Three Stooges do kaiju, but
I actually kind of enjoyed the movie. There was a few parts I was like, yeah, I don't think so.
Believe it or not, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you what about that movie that really made me not like it. It wasn't a monster. If you just made him a standalone creature, gave him a new name, just called him Zilla, okay, fine. He's a whole new thing, maybe a distant relation, because he moves way too fast. I'm not exactly sure how something that big hides. But anyway, because, look, I've been in the New York subways. They're not that big. So let's see if I've got this right. He can literally go through buildings, which he does to come up behind the helicopters, which is probably the coolest part of the movie. Okay. But he gets caught in the rigging on a bridge. So I can go through concrete and reinforced steel, but not steel cables. I mean, that's what those spikes on your back are for. Okay. Is to slice up stuff like that. But that's not what did it. Hey, KSNC, how you doing? What drives me bonkers is the people who made this, their portrayal of the Army/National Guard. I mean, was first off, a staff sergeant does not run an operation like that and report directly to a full colonel. That's just everything on the ground, all these tanks. The guy in charge is a staff sergeant. Okay. No, that's just not how any of this works. The relationship between them is behavior. It was all very bad Hollywood cliche of the military. The other thing I really didn't like is you've got 500 guys down there all pointing guns at him. He's standing right in front of him, and nobody can hit the target. It wasn't terribly.
All Hollywood movies were like that.
Not to mention that the Stinger missile, that the little even if they were using something bigger like a Maverick, it's got a couple of pound warhead. It's made for knocking out a tank. It is not going to decapitate the Chrysler Building. Blow a big hole in it, probably. Although I did like the mayor's reaction. That was the Chrysler Building. But no, it was just their inept portrayal of the military. Everybody, clearly the military did not help them with the movie, so they did not have access to the correct stuff. So the guys are carrying this hodgepodge of whatever they had in the Hollywood, Hollywood, props locker. And I'm like, yeah, they don't issue those in the military. What the hell are these guys carrying? I'm waiting for somebody to come up with a flintlock or an old school bazooka, and I love bazookas, but it's just
especially on spaceships.
Yeah, I love me some bazookas on the spaceship. Yeah, I'm gonna fire a basically a rocket powered grenade at a hatch that is 7 feet away. What were you expecting to happen if you hit that monster and that warhead went boom? You're standing, next to him.
It's going to make a big mess and a loud noise.
Although, to their credit, it did glance off the hatch. I was thinking, that's probably what would happen. How it didn't go out the side of the thing, I don't know. But, because they build them spaceships tough, by golly. I just love the glorious absurdity of some of it. There's going to be a lag. I'm pausing the picture. I don't think that Zilla
With the blue flames on his back.
Yeah, hold on. You'll see him again. I got it paused so we can take a closer look. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it chin and nose just don't. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe can you read? Wait a minute. It might say down at the bottom here. Hold on. I'm going to try and zoom in on this. What on the card? Unique Godzilla model that combines the best parts of Toho MonsterVerse variants, printed on an Elgato Saturn III Ultra with PK. Is this 3D printed?
I don't know about the resin printers.
Okay. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more.
Well, it's entirely possible.
Unique Godzilla model. Okay, so it's not from any specific movie, so I guess we're both right. That combines the best parts of the Toho and MonsterVerse variants, printed on a Lego Saturn III Ultra with PK Grat Kit resin and a combination of Vallejo. Okay, so I guess it's 3D printed, which is Ken. If I get you the file, you can print me things like this, right?
With a resin printer.
Well, what's wrong with the stuff you got?
It won't have that kind of resolution that small.
How much is a resin printer?
I actually don't know, and they're not. The cheap ones, obviously, are not designed for making things very big. You need a rather.
Well, we'd get the file and then make it in pieces.
You could, yeah, the legs separately from the tail and the body, and
yes, yeah. Ken, that's what we call them models.
Oh, that's not the spirit of 3D printing. The idea is to print it in as few pieces as possible.
Well, I don't know. A lot of kits have 3D printed parts or 3D printed. And the two complement each other. You don't have to be one or the other. And I think I just started an argument with. I'm waiting for the $6,000. Oh, geez. Okay, I don't want that bad.
Oh, that's a nice printer.
No, if Ken didn't get the boat, you could have got that.
Yeah, Ken. You didn't get the boat. Oh, by the way, there was something.
I could have gotten a few of those printers for what I paid for the boat.
There was something I meant to do that I forgot to do. I meant to have a picture of you guys up here on screen when I'm talking, so they can.
As much as a new Tarvis.
Okay, where's
printing on a 3D resin printer is a different art. There's different things you have to do that are much different from the kind of printing I do.
I haven't even asked you to do anything. You're already trying to wiggle out of it.
Well, that starship I printed for you was made out of a bunch of different pieces.
See, that's the way we would do it. But would it be? I mean, if you get the file, we could make, the legs and feet. I mean, they wouldn't have any trouble with those textures of those surfaces or anything.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. Is that the kind of printer that I use doesn't do that kind of texturing very well.
Well, if you can make the base kit, I can always, texture it with mold sculpt or something. But I don't know. We've all seen these videos of these guys who they just twist some wire and start putting that mold sculpt on it, and the next thing you know, they're making from whole cloth these very impressive sculptures. Of course. Problem is they have, what do you call it, talent. Hello? Come on. No, that's a softball. I threw out. Nothing snarky to say. That was an easy one.
Okay, fine. Tell you what, if you buy me a resin printer, I'll make it for you.
Yeah, I'll bet you would. Okay, let's see here. Fit the screen. There we go. I figure I put a picture of Steve and Ken up, so at least when they're chatting, we have
for the 5 a sculptor student.
Okay.
Where is your starship? I haven't seen it in the background yet.
It's right over my. It's right over there. It's yeah. Hang on, just a second now. Edit. Fit the screen. Shrink it down. There we go. Now we got a picture of you and Steve, so when you guys talk, at least we got some imagery to go with it.
Okay, you got Steve in his playroom.
Yeah. Okay, guys, watch your eyes. I'm gonna turn the camera here just a second so Ken can. There it is, right there. And you'll see it in about 20 seconds.
Okay.
It's like the centerpiece of my office on that wall.
Yeah, that's back when I used to go to your place to do your live streams.
I'll find a better
In your
picture.
bedroom.
I was trying to find the picture of you on the boat, but I can't find it right now. Let's see. So.
Okay. Oh, there it is. All right, I see it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Took all these great pictures, and now I must have hidden them somewhere.
No, the Times just says, I guess Captain Ken is always blurry or too much cough syrup.
And Ken doesn't drink. He's boring.
Yes, the crowd says we could be brothers. Well, hello, Natasha. How's Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Oh, Shaggy Buzz. Wait. What about you? The P-38 Ken was 3D print fixing.
Yeah, Ken, what's the story with that?
Well, the printer wasn't working correctly to reprint the pieces because the kit that I originally got was already printed, so I just had to put it together. But since it broke into several pieces, I printed new pieces, but they didn't come out as well. But I have been working on upgrading the printer to make it work better. I'm thinking about giving it another shot here soon.
Okay. Well, as I was saying earlier, I showed my lovely wife the Arizona after it was done, and she was so impressed with it. It is going to be the permanent piece on the mantle. I didn't know where I was going to put it, and she was like, she saw it, so it's going right there on the mantle. So
That says a lot.
she's going to be painting the placard with the name on it for me because she's extremely good at that fine detail work. But that is that's the Hobby Boss kit. What's that?
I was just asking you if you'd fix that roughed up red hull part on the other side.
No, that was a reaction. I apparently put too much dull coat on it, and that was a reaction. Now, I have two options because the top and the bottom are not glued together. I can go sand it down and repaint it, or, since it's on the other side, I could brush it with some of the weathering tools and make like barnacles out of it.
Why don't you just throw mud at it and see what sticks?
Now you're just being silly. No, I saw that and I went, that looks a lot like barnacles. They could have come across something on the open ocean. Maybe they were attacked by a sea monster.
Nathan says, Max, in the modeling world, your wife would be known as an enabler.
Well, it helps that she does the dolls, which is great because Ken, it dawned on me, you can make like swords and pistols and things for the dolls that she makes.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be nothing for the kind of 3D printing. That'd be easy stuff. And
yeah, it'd be low resolution, but yeah, I could do stuff like that.
Boy, it's bad enough. Cartoon Putin. Okay. I'm glad I brought up the picture of something I wanted to mention. This is one of those things. A glue trooper was at a museum and sent me some pictures of their beautiful USS Arizona model I have under glass. I sat this up here, took these pictures, came to the computer to download them, checked my email, And there was the pictures he sent me of the museum, Arizona, from the museum he was at. I was like, I literally just put that, they had a big hand-built one, but I was like, I literally just put a model of the Arizona on my mantle, sit down, and there's photos of a museum piece, Arizona, waiting on me to check my mail. That's the Styrene River at full throttle. But I just thought that was just cool.
And how did the one in the museum look? Was
Good.
it the same color?
Yes, it looked great.
Was it the same colors?
Yeah, it was the white cabs and everything, and the whole smash. Oops.
Nathan's asked twice if I've had any more nautical adventures or misadventures lately. No, nothing that I would want to talk about.
Wait a minute! Whoa! Yeah, you can see the damage right there. That's where I could just barnacleize that. But you don't get off the hook that easy, Ken.
What?
You said you don't want to talk about it. Now we want to know.
Well, okay, I was just trying to fill words in there. There isn't anything. Boat's still afloat. Nothing's broken. I did take the binnacle apart today, which has the throttle and the gear shift lever on it, and discovered that I don't have to replace the throttle and gear shift cables because the levers that go through the bushing into the inside that hook up to the cables, the bushings are the problem, which is why I can't move the levers.
So it's just the bushings.
It's just the bushings. Now I got to figure out how to get the thing apart. I think I'm going to have to take it to a machine shop.
What are the odds? Maintenance on a boat. Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
Well, from my experience so far, and from what I've heard a lot of other people, that to find out that something isn't broken and a less expensive thing is broken is extremely rare on a boat.
So just take the win on that one.
Yeah, it usually goes the other way around. You take something apart thinking it's one thing, and it turns out to be a whole lot worse. I don't like to fish. Fish guts are not my thing.
You know, this would have been much easier if you just joined the Navy at some point.
I briefly considered it.
You could have got it all out of your system in one shot, you know.
Nathan wants to know, play what happened. We never got a live stream from Ken's boat.
Oh, that may happen in the future. How strong is your internet out there, Ken?
It's very good.
We could make that. We might make that happen at some point.
Yeah, that would be fun. My office, my new boss's boss likes to have monthly meetings with everybody attending, and you know how when you go onto Zoom or some of those video programs, you can put a background behind you, like we did when we were going together.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about just putting the camera up and do it from the boat. Just put the camera up in the cockpit and just sit there with the background behind me without having to do anything.
Until you move and the chroma key's like, hey, what was that? Hey, you're not in your office.
It's not chroma key.
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
I have started.
Just have a picture of a really decrepit basement so he thinks you really are working.
Actually, Ken, they had an episode of Monk, with Tony Shalhoub, where the person alibied themselves for a murder by creating in the back of a truck. They made a set that was identical to like their living room, and they were emailing the person or whatever from there and going, there's no way. There I am. I was in my living room. And they almost got away with it. But, of course, Monk noticed something was not level. And it turned out he figured it out. But I was like, it was pretty clever. Almost pulled it off.
I think, Nathan, what you're thinking about is a sand bar, not a sand barge.
But
Ken's boat on a 3-hour live stream. A 3-hour live stream.
if I go all the way down there to do it from the boat, it may be just that.
A 3-hour live stream.
3 hour tour. I was looking for a picture, but I swear, you know, it's like I download stuff only so I can lose it. Oh well. That's weird.
Oh wow, Nathan, you really want to go there?
Where did he want to go?
Nathan says, "You know what a crazy world we would live in if the Titanic sunk in the year 2024, and we would be watching on YouTube and Facebook." Live streaming from people in the Atlantic Ocean as people are freezing to death.
There is a cartoon that somebody put in a magazine that said if the Titanic sank today, and it showed everybody in the water taking selfies and pictures of the ship sinking. That was actually the cartoon.
Jim wants to know who would be Gilligan.
There was a great one. Somebody says, you want to get off the island? The first thing you do is kill Gilligan. And I was like, he better be glad they never figured that one out. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, never mind. That was Stottlemeyer's fiance?
Yes, Stottlemeyer's fiance. He figured it out because when she was in there, it's like a pencil rolled off the desk sideways or something. He realized they weren't on level ground. And he went out there and realized that the outside the guy's house, the street was on a hill. And he figured out she put it in a truck parked right by the guy's house. But, you know, it's like, so, you know, of course, Monk figured it out because, well, he's Monk.
The crowd says Ian for Gilligan.
Nah, not Ian. Ian's smart. He's the professor. And one more topic before we round it up.
I nominate you, Steve.
What was that?
I nominate you.
No, I'd be the professor.
Nah, you'd be the skipper.
As long as we have a Marianne.
Yeah, really. You know, it always cracked me up. Everybody's always surprised when they go Ginger Marianne. Virtually every guy goes Marianne.
Yeah.
So, one last topic before we go.
Science fiction theater. Dun, dun, dun,
dun. And I've been watching it was 2 seasons, and I've been watching it on YouTube lately. And I got to be honest, I'm pretty freaking impressed with it. It's a
great show.
It was, and with Truman Bradley.
Natasha says I would be Mr. Howe.
Ken for Gilligan, Max is skipper.
Yeah, I can go there.
So Natasha, would that make you Lovey?
God, Ken is Ginger. Okay, that's just wrong.
Oh, no.
No. Bad, Shaggy Buds, bad.
Yeah, bad boy. We're going to cut you off if you keep making comments like that.
Oh, man. Yeah, we have too much fun here. Well, guys.
Gilligan did all the work.
He also spoiled most of the rescues.
Ken for Gilligan, Max is skipper.
I could go with that. That makes you Mr. Howell.
Oh, there you go. Ken looks nothing like Tina Louise. Very good observation, Paul.
And they're both happy about that. So I guess Tina Louise is the last man standing in that crowd, isn't she?
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know if you guys know, not only did Roy Cross pass away, but we also just lost the one of the vocalists and the keyboard expert from Electric Light Orchestra, ELO, just passed away. And I've always loved ELO, that sort of synth music of theirs. And he's the one that did the intro from Mr. Blue Sky, I think it is. And I was like, I don't want to end this on a downer, but it just really is a bummer when the icons of your youth are all going away. And a lot of them, not even the icons of your youth, but even now it's the icons of your adulthood.
Same age as you.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them are younger. And I'm like, come on, guys, this is BS. Knock it off.
So how does this pertain to science fiction theater?
Okay, so yeah.
Thank you for getting him back on track.
He got the tangent lasso out and pulled us back. That's what we gotta have. We gotta have a tangent lasso. So reeling in. So science fiction theater, I've been watching it. It only lasted 2 seasons with your host, Truman Bradley. And I tell you, Steve, that's my dream job when I retire. Be the guest host on a show like that. Although I imagine he probably shot all of his scenes in a day. But well, they do that a lot.
Styrene Theater 3000.
There you go.
Styrene Theater 3000.
I think we've got a few of those already.
That could be what we call the Max on Movies segment. It could just be a segment of this. Styrene Theater 3000.
Yeah. That's a good. I like that. Very good.
I got to write that down. Who said that? That's Tom. Tom Fox.
Very good, Tom.
I guess I'm going to give
Next
you a cookie.
week, Hogan's Heroes.
I'll let you guys in on a secret about Hogan's Heroes.
Uh-oh.
But you can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Now, this is going back 30 years, but I was too young, but I could probably pull it off now. In the 90s, actually late 80s, early 90s, there was talk about doing a Hogan's Heroes movie. And the way they were going to do it is they were going to have, it was going to be after the war, and Hogan was, he'd been an OSS guy, and now he's just a bored officer with nothing to do. And there's something goes on in East Germany. He's got to round up the old crew, and he's got to get Klink and Schultz to help him also. And I think they were planning to have pre-meltdown Mel Gibson playing Hogan. And I sent my headshot in for Schultz.
And they said, come right over?
No, it never got made, never got greenlit. I couldn't have done it then, I was too young, but now I'm right, sadly the right weight, and the right height and right age, so I just have to learn to speak German.
And the right attitude.
One of the things that helped sell that show, as ridiculous as it was, is the fact that Banner and Klemper were both native Germans, or well, I think one might have been Austrian, but so they spoke native German, and their accents were not fake. So in fact, Leon Askin, who played General Burkhalter, was Hungarian, and they were all Jews. So they'd come to Hollywood, and it's ironic that that these three guys, this is what they'd be remembered for. Klemper was upset many years later because they were having a veterans parade, and he was uninvited, even though he was a veteran of the U.S. Army of World War II. At first he was a linguist because he spoke fluent German, obviously, and then he got into the special services, into the music, because despite that he intentionally played the violin badly on the show, he was actually an excellent violinist. His father was Otto Klemper, the conductor. So he grew up with a musical background, a classical musical background. Anyway, he said he was very hurt by the fact that he was a United States Army World War II veteran, and he was uninvited to be in a parade, a Veterans Day parade, because he played this comical German character during the war. And it just shows you how people can lose sight of things. But there you go. What are you going to do? So anywho, no, Science Fiction Theater 3000, or Science Fiction Theater. God. I have just found this to be, and this thing was made in the late 50s, I think, 58 or something like that.
Yeah, it was made in the 50s.
Now, apparently the second season was in black and white to save money, I believe, but it was a direct-to-syndication. So, I don't think you could do that today because virtually every station's corporate owned. But
they had very good stories, and they were based in true science. A lot of them.
Exactly, and heck, Raytheon gave them some of the equipment that's on the set, although a lot of it was recycled from other sci-fi shows. But I don't know. The show just has it. It takes itself kind of seriously and makes an honest effort. The actors are actually pretty good. They had some really interesting ideas, Death at 2 a.m. and these others. I was kind of like, a little reminiscent of DOA, but I was like, some of the stuff was a little clowny, but I mean, they're on a tight budget, and some of these people were theater actors, so they kind of overdid things so you could see it. But I just found it overall to just be some really good television, and I like the way they introduced it and everything. They kept the stories were short and taut because it's what, a 26-minute show or something. And I just, if you guys haven't seen it, give it a check. It's pretty good. Oh, by the way, and one piece of useless side trivia, I learned today. You guys remember in Star Trek that, and we're really going to get in the weeds here for just a short time. You guys remember that in a couple episodes, the phasers the guys were wearing had white handles?
No, I don't remember that. Okay.
It only appeared in 3 episodes, but I'm enough of a nerd that I'd say, what, they got ivory pimp grips on their phasers now? I think it was the
Japanese ones.
I think it was the Man Trap, the Naked Time, and one other first season shows that the phasers had white grips. And what I didn't realize was that's before they had the really good hero phasers. They made the phasers in-house, and they were very low fidelity, but they didn't have any close-ups of them. Roddenberry wanted a hero prop with all the working gadgets, so he sent one of them to a guy who he made a couple of them. But apparently they were just knocking out like molds to make quickies, and they just molded them in white and stuck them on the unit. And then they decided it didn't look good, so they painted them all black after that way. When they ask you, how did you get that part? And then nothing. That was something I saw in one of the little Trek World videos where the guy was explaining that, and of course we all know the 3-foot Enterprise finally made its way home. It was found and all. That's all. There are YouTube videos out there explaining what happened. But looks like that's it for the night. The Man Trap used the Cage laser pistols. It's funny. No, the Man Trap, they had the laser phasers. But they had the brown belts. Unless they used the other one for something else. No, you're right. The Man Trap, the doctor on the planet, had one of the old phasers, which made sense because he's supposed to have been isolated there a long time. The phasers they were using were supposed to be a new issue. And the reason was the old round barrel phasers, those things that look like squirt guns. Roddenberry didn't like the way they looked. He said they looked like cheap toys, and in fact, that's what they were. So he was adamant that they get something that looked better. And it was the same guy who designed the Enterprise, Matt Jeffries, a friend of Mike Machat's, who designed the phaser. And for those who know, Matt Jeffries was an avid pilot. He owned, I think, a Waco biplane, and Mike was out there where they used to fly it or something. I forget the story, but I was like, he's talking, I was out with Walt Jeffries. I'm like, you mean Matt Jeffries? He goes, yeah. I was like, the thing about going to lunch with Mike is you never know what he's going to name drop. He goes, he's known all these people that, are just, they're icons now in our world anyway. Oh gosh, Matt Jeffries is around. I'd start a TV show just so I could have him design the ships for it. So
maybe you could get Mike to take you over to introduce you to some of these people.
Ken, they've all passed.
Oh, maybe he'd take you to where their gravesite is.
Yeah, that'd be quite a conversation.
Sorry, but I've watched enough horror movies. You're gonna have trouble getting me to a to a graveyard.
Well,
I used to play in a graveyard as a kid. Man, I mean, when we were kids, we go watch spooky movies and then go play in the graveyard. We go watch some, AIP movie or a Hammer film, and it was still daylight out, so we go play in the graveyard. And at night we play hide and seek in it. So it's like, it's kind of hard for a graveyard movie to scare me because, like, what are you talking about? It was one right behind the Quincy Motor Lodge. Me and Robert Anderson used to go play there and hide at night and everything, It's like, oh, man. Oh, the innocence of childhood. Oh, by the way, guys, I put a video out earlier today. today. It actually made it a couple of days ago. I just want to give one last push for this. Lou over at JD Hobbies, they got the Kickstarter program going. Just go check out the video I made earlier. It's got the link. If you want to help out, hop on board. I'm going to join also. But they're trying to raise money to get that the pilot episode of A Model Life made, and I hope to make it. It'll be
Garfield says something interesting. He said in Star Trek, all the pipes were labeled GNDN. Goes nowhere, does nothing.
Yeah. Also TPDN. So remember, this pipe does nothing. Yeah, I love that. Little Easter eggs in there. And
I never knew that one.
They've got a guy that goes, I don't know if he still does it, he went to Star Trek conventions and signed autographs, and all he was a guy that walked around in the background. But it's like, it's Star Wars. They got people where they got guys who were just like sitting in the background during the X-Wing briefing, and they'll go in their full X-Wing pilot costume and sign autographs. I mean, like, I was there, but you didn't have any lines, but I was there, and they're like, hey, it was. They were all in the exact same set, when they're all in their X-Wings. And he says, we just took turns. Everybody sat in there. They turned the camera on. You read your lines, got out. Next guy got in. And now look around. Look left. Look right. Okay, you're about to die. Scream. Ah! Yeah. Like, I don't know. Somehow they just take something away from the gravitas of it all. So, guys, I hope you had a little bit of fun tonight. I want to thank you for coming out and joining us. And I want to thank Ken and Steve for joining. I hopefully will hear from Dan Monroe this weekend. He said he tried to call over the weekend. He's a really busy guy, though. And we'd like to get him on hopefully this month. And I put in my bid for next, not this, for next month. And hopefully I'll get some more LA overnights because I get over to meet with Lou some more. And gosh, I know me. If I go back to the hobby, I've gotten out of there twice without spending any money, but third time's not a charm, baby. My defenses are weakening. And especially since I looked at my own video and saw a bunch of models that I didn't see when I was standing there. Oh, he's got an original Strombecker PT-20. Ooh, I should get... Oh, I didn't see that. I'm like, oh, God.
And they won't be there when you go back.
I'm getting high on my own supply, watching my own videos and catch them. I'll be back. But, anywho. Well,
How
guys...
did you manage to get out of there without buying at least one kit?
Well, yeah, you know what?
That's why.
It'd actually be kind of rude. And so, anywho, that's where we're at. And I want to thank everybody for coming out and spending time with us tonight. Guys, I'll let you say your nighty nights, and we'll sign off and run the outro so folks can... I'm a modeler, not a pilot. Yeah, I'll say that on a retirement flight.
Oh, by the way, I got to see the Blue Angels perform today.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were out there at the beach.
Yeah, they were in Vero Beach today, and that's where I keep my boat. I was sitting on the back of the boat watching them fly around. One time they flew right over the boat at about 400 feet. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
There's your tax dollars, baby. Well, guys, I'll let you say.
One of the other boats said.
Well, guys, I'll let you say your goodnights, and then we'll sign off. And I'll run the outro.
Before beauty.
You're older than me, right?
Yeah, but I'm beautiful.
You keep telling yourself that, buddy. That's what I like, that positive mental image.
That's right. We can send you the pictures, Steve. We know what you look like.
It's right there.
You're just jealous because I got a K9 on my lap and you don't.
And on that,
we could go some places with that one.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'll let everybody go. Good night, folks. Ken, Steve, say good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys. Thanks for joining us. We know you have a choice, and we appreciate you spending your evening with us.
We do. Take care, and as always, model on.